Hey everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day. Whoop whoop. Happy Wednesday to each of you. As the title goes, this is, and I promised you, this is all about the single fold binding, okay? And one of the things I want to do, I do want to chit chat for just a second. When you have double folded, or some of you might have heard the term French fold, usually a lot of people use 2.5-inch strips and they fold it in half completely and then put it on their quilt for their binding. Okay, a single fold is just that. You have one strip of fabric, you don't fold it all the way in half and put it on. Okay, so the strip is a lot smaller, and today I am using a 1 1/4. If you leave your batting where you do a 1/4 inch off the edge to give a little fill to your binding, you know how some people like to leave an extra little amount of batting, I would encourage a 1 1/2. Okay, now that's the biggest difference is the amount of fabric. You go from 2.5, and I'm using 1 1/4. Okay. And I usually do use 2 1/4, just so you know, because I don't typically leave batting on the edge. So it saves in fabric, for sure. That's the main difference. So some of the advantages and the disadvantages. One advantage is it's cheaper. Because you're using a thinner amount of strip, you don't have to buy quite as much fabric, okay? That's one advantage. It is cheaper. Supposedly, people say it's faster. I guess it would depend on your method, but I don't think it's any faster personally. That's just my own personal opinion, but some people believe that it is faster. And because there's less fabric, there actually is less bulk because there's less fabric, right? So it is less bulky, and it can appear to lay a little bit more flat, really depending on the project that you're doing, but it can appear more flat and your miters might be even more prettier. Again, I think that's up for debate. It's one of those quilting debates, but those are some of the advantages. One disadvantage, and I've got a thought on this too, some people say because you're not folding it in half, a larger strip, and folding the whole thing in half and then putting all that fabric on, they're saying that the single fold is less durable. But I got to tell you, I know a lot of people who do it on, and some of them are celebrities, okay? Lots of people use it on all their quilts. They like the method, they prefer the method, and they find it to be just fine. So I don't have a thought one way or the other whether it's more durable. I understand the concept on how it could be less durable, but I don't know that I completely agree. And remember, we don't have quilt police here, and this is your quilt, your guideline. Remember, I don't like rules. So if you want and prefer the single fold, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There really, truly is not. Okay. So although because they say it's less durable, a lot of people will use it just for wall hangings or things that won't get used and abused. Like they wouldn't put it on a baby quilt, for instance, that's going to get washed all the time, dragged on the floor, all of that stuff. A lot of people will use that single fold for those reasons. But like I said, this is your quilt. You can do what you want, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. Okay. All right. So again, I am using 1 1/4. I am doing this fully on as a complete sew on the machine. Two things came out of this in my head while I was doing this. First and foremost, I'm telling you, I'm putting it on the front, I'm flipping it to the back, and I'm stitching on the front because I want the front to be the prettiest. Okay, that's my typical method. Now I'm still getting used to this because I find it just a little different when I'm stitching in a ditch. And of course, you don't have as much fabric, so I feel like I struggle at times to press it straight. But I'm getting there. I can see that I'm getting better. It takes practice when you learn a new method. So I'm using 1 1/4. I'm stitching on the front. I'm adding it to the front and folding it over to the back where I do glue. Now, when I was doing this, I had a thought. When I do my bags, sometimes I don't do it like this. So I could see doing another method where I actually stitch on the front, or put it on the back and flip it to the front and stitch on the front. Yeah. So I'm going to do some practice with that, and you can look forward to me sharing it's just using I don't like zigzag stitches for some reason, but it's definitely using something a little different. I don't know how it's going to work on a whole quilt, so I want to try it first, and you can look forward to it, and I'll share with you later what that all is. All right, so single fold, guys. I'm going to take you in, and we're going to get this started. I'm going to walk you through just how I get this done. So I will see you guys in just a sec. To get this started, I am showing you that I'm going to put it on this small block that I have both sides done. We're going to say the pink side is the front side. P comes in the alphabet before R, which is the red side. So we're going to make, just so we know which side is which, we're going to make the pink side the front. Okay. So I am going to take, I did take 1 1/4 inch strips is what I'm using. If you end up using any kind of 10-inch square pack or anything that has pinked edges with the pinking shears, you'll want to make sure that you clip off the ends. It helps a lot if this is something that you're new of doing. So I did that. I took off all the pinked edges. Okay. So we're going to end up putting this on the front, and I'm going to pull it around to the back. These are 1 1/4 inch. Okay. Now, to make it a little easier, what I want to show you is when you join these. Now, these are 1 1/2. They're not 1 1/4. But when you join these, I like to place my right sides together. I don't normally do that. Let me start that over. I take the first strip and I make it so it's towards me with the right side up. And then I take the second strip that I'm adding, right side facing down, so the right sides are together. And I line up this side flush, but I give myself just a little room on top. Now, when you do that, you got to make sure the point is on, okay? And all I'm going to do is take my disappearing ink pen, and I'm going to line up where the two angles meet on the top, and then I can see where these ones meet on the bottom. And I'm just going to simply get them lined up nice and pretty. Okay. Once I like it, I'm going to go ahead and draw me a line. And I will take this to the sewing machine, and I will sew straight down this line, making sure that I have these corners lined up. Sometimes I pin them if I think it's going to shift. And just whenever you do pin it, you want to make sure that you pin where you're not going to get in the way. Your presser foot or your needle is not going to get in the way with the needle. Presser foot and the needle not in the way with the pin. Good grief. So you want to make sure this is out of the way. You pull this under and just sew corner to corner right on the line. One of the few times I've ever said that. And what will happen is you'll get all these little triangles that are sewn together, okay? And then I just simply you can either take a pair of scissors, or you could take your rotary blade. You'd line up your 1/4 inch line on the stitch that you sewed, and then you just can simply cut off about a 1/4 inch. And then I take it to the pressing board and I press these open. Okay? Very simple. That's just my method. But this is how I get all of my mitered corners, which I already have, or not mitered corners, all my bias stitches all done. Now I'm going to bring over the ironing or my pressing mat with iron and show you what I feel like makes this a lot easier before I stick it on a quilt or on a project that I'm doing it for. So I'm going to pull that over and I'll be right back to show you what I do next. For this next part, I'm going to use my disappearing ink pen and a ruler. And you might think this is a little much, but you don't have to do this way. I'll talk about 2 other ways you can do it as we progress. Well, at the first thing, you could just eyeball this, okay? If you're a good eyeballer, yay. I am not, and I just feel more comfortable doing it this way. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining up my ruler with my fabric along the 1/2 inch mark, okay? And once I get it there, I simply draw a line, okay? And I will go through, I'm just going to do one more here. One more line and I'll show you what the next step is. And make sure she's nice and straight. Whoop. She doesn't want to lay pretty. Okay. So you get this lined up. And if you can't get the whole thing at once, you can just do a little short section. So I'm just going to draw another little line and then I would move down. I won't do the whole thing because this is disappearing. So I have time, but not a lot. So the reason I did a 1/2 inch, okay. Now remember, when I drew this line, it's not exactly on the 1/2 inch because, the ruler took up part of this space, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to roll it to the line, trying to get it nice and straight. I give it just a tiny bit of a finger press because at this point I'm going to take my iron here and I'm pressing my fabric to that drawn line. And like I said, I am not very good at eyeballing, so this is what I have found was easiest for me. And I'll let that cool and I'll go all the way down to the end of the fabric. Okay, now like I said, you can eyeball it, and then I'm going to show you something when we go to flip this that you don't even have to do this prior. I just really found it to be a lot easier because it's 1 1/4. Okay, so there's a lot less fabric that we're working with, so I felt it was more manageable now than it was before I put it on a quilt. So you'll see that, and we'll talk about that again, but you can eyeball a roughly your 1/4 inch. You don't have to draw on the line, but if you're anything like me, it really does make it easy. This goes pretty fast, and then we'll be ready. So I'm going to pull this all out, and I always cut 10 inches more. That gives all the mitered corners that I'm going to use, plus a tail. And depending on the size of your project will determine how many strips that you need, right? So that's math for another day. Maybe we'll talk about that on the live. But this is what I'm going to finish off camera here. And then I'm going to pull you in with the block. And we're going to go ahead and start to get this put on. So I'll see you in just a sec. One thing I did fail to mention was, why in the world did we do this? What's the purpose, and why did we do a 1/2 inch line? Well, when you fold the fabric to the line you drew, which was a 1/2 inch, it allows it to be in half, which then gives you a 1/4 inch fold. Okay? And that 1/4 inch fold is going to be our outside to our binding. So therefore, we will have no raw edges exposed. Okay, so that's what this is for. If you do this with eyeballing, that's fine. If you're good at figuring out what a 1/4 inch looks like, great, you can, and just press it down. You don't even have to do that, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. We're getting there. And when we go to flip it, I'll show you why. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I find it easier to manipulate, like I said before. Now, the next step is we're actually going to put this on the quilt, okay? And normally we have a double fold. We have a one piece of fabric folded in half, so all our raw edges line up on the edge, right? Well, this is one piece of fabric that is not folded in half, okay? So we're going to line up this raw edge on our quilt, okay? Giving yourself a little bit of room. I'm going to start somewhere around here. Now, one thing is very important. Make sure your seam, you might want to do a test run going around and make sure that your seams aren't lining up on your corners. That'll give you a headache. It's not any fun. Okay, so we're lining up the raw edge to the raw edge of the quilt. The fold, okay, our 1/4 inch fold that we have now is towards the inside, okay, of the quilt top, towards the middle. Raw edge to raw edge, fold to the middle. We're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch this down, and I'll show you how I get my mitered corners. So we're going to go, before we do, this will be a lot easier. For the first one, let's go ahead and let me just pin this in place so it doesn't shift, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and, oh, that's not good. Might need to press that down just one more second. Okay. Move this over. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to line up my 1/4 inch along the bottom of my quilt top with my raw edge on the outside. And I'm just going to give myself a line. Okay. And when I go to stitch along here, I'm going to go one itty bitty stitch past it. Just one itty bitty. Okay. So let me go ahead and press this down just a hot second. Make sure we're good. And then we'll go ahead and get this started, and I'll show you. There's one difference because of this fold that I want to show you a nice little tip that was helpful for me. So I'll see you at the sewing machine in just a sec. Okay, I started to load her, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this needle out, and I'm going to go ahead and drop my presser foot. And yes, I do have my 1/4 inch seam guide loaded and a walking foot. I just find it easier, but you don't need a walking foot, I guess, because you don't have as much fabric, but you still do have 2 layers of fabric on top, plus the batting, plus what's underneath. So that's looking at 4 layers, right? I'm going to go ahead and drop my needle. I'm stitching at a 2.0 stitch length, if you're wondering. And I'm just going to do, I am going to give myself a little back stitch. Okay. Make sure I'm all lined up, ready to go. Now remember, I have this line here, and it's telling me where I need to stop, which is a 1/4 inch. Once I reach it, I am going to go ahead and back stitch. And I did go, I hope, one step past it. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut threads. Okay, and I'm going to bring you over to the table again. Yep, I did pretty good. And I'm going to show you just a nice little trick, because we do have this single fold. What I found helpful. So I'll see you at the pressing board here in just a sec. Okay, so this is the part we stitched. We came to the corner. We stopped right past it, just a smidge. So now what I wanted to show you, this fold, keep it in. Okay, keep it folded when you do this. And then of course we just line up. So we have a straight line going through here. And then we just pull it back. And when we come back to the sewing machine, we're just going to start on our 1/4 inch and start to stitch again. And we'll go down to the next corner and you'll do the exact same thing. And I actually draw as I go. So when it gets close enough, not too close so I can get my pen and my ruler in there, I go ahead and draw another line. Okay? But what I wanted to show you was to be sure to keep that fold in. It just makes it a lot easier at the end of the day instead of trying to refold it later. So I will see you guys in just a sec. I just wanted to show you guys real quick. I just bring it right back over to the sewing machine. I go ahead and drop my needle and I start to sew. Do a little back stitch just so it stays, and I'm just going to do this all the way around the entire quilt top to get this binding on, and I'll do the same thing on every corner. Okay, so I wanted to show you that. Very simple. Well, we're just going to stitch them all the way around, doing those corners exactly the same. Now if you just notice, I lift my presser foot because I want to make sure that my seam here stayed flat. Okay, that's all we're going to do all the way around. Now I'm going to have a little problem. I just noticed. I'm going to keep going here for just a second so you can see it. Alright, I'm getting close, and you can see, look how close my seam is, guys. That's what happens when you don't check it. So at this point, because I'm close enough, I'm going to go ahead and grab my ruler, and I'm going to set her down, lining it up along the 1/4 inch. I'm simply going to give myself a line and stitch to the end just like we did before. So you can go ahead and get all of yours on just like so, and I'll take you to the next step once it's all on. So I'll see you in just a sec. Okay, so we have it all stitched on, ready to go here. Okay, and I open it up and I place the beginning tail down, top tail on right on top of it, nice and straight. And I like, normally we would say cut, right, for the length, for the amount of your width of your fabric. So this was 1 1/4, so we would measure from what's underneath an overlap of 1 1/4. But listen, this is so finicky. I really like doing this. So I'm going to put a pin right where the fabric starts underneath, so because it's hard to see sometimes. And I'm going to take my ruler, okay, and I'm going to pull it down a little bit. It's not actually, there we go. Well, I can tell you, it's right here. If I needed to put a pin, I would put a pin just to let me know where it's at. And I'm going to go just slightly inside of it, just slightly, to give myself, to make it just a little tighter. I'll take that disappearing ink pen, and I'll draw myself a nice line. That line wasn't straight. There we go. Okay. Now, just like we join other binding, but see, I'm not cutting it yet. I love this. I'm going to take my bottom piece, place it down, and I'm going to line up this bottom piece with that line, okay, that I drew. When I'm happy with it, I'll go ahead and pin it. And what you're going to do, remember, we always want to sew parallel to our quilt top. So I'm going to sew corner to that corner, a diagonal line. If you need to draw one, that's fine too. But I'm going to sew corner to corner, and we'll find out how we did. And I'll show you what to do with all this extra stuff. So I'll see you when I get this done in just a sec. Now just know you could do this with a bigger quilt too. You don't have to cut an overlay. But this gives you an opportunity to make sure, let's get that out of the way, that everything's going to lay flat. And it'll give you an opportunity to make sure that you've got a good miter or a good bias sewing line. Okay. Once you know this is good. See, if you messed up, then we could just simply unstitch the stitch that we just did, and we still have lots of tail to correct it. But then I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch-ish from my stitch line. Okay. I'm going to give it a nice finger press. Now, I want you to notice I did, like I said before, I opened it up to do this because all the rest of them we did that too. I'm going to give it a finger press. I'm going to fold it up. And if I really wanted to, I could press this down. Okay. Then I'm just simply going to take my sewing machine and I'm going to finish the stitch and close it off. And then we're going to go to the next step. Because remember, this is our top. So how does this work? And we're going to talk about folding this line over in a different way you could do it if you're more comfortable. So I will get this done and I will see you guys in just a sec. Okay, I've got her all closed up here. I went ahead and pressed just a little bit just so she lays nice and flat for you guys. And now we're just going to start to put, remember, this is our top. So we're going to go to the back. Okay. And I'm going to start to pull this over. Now, what I want you to notice, see how this is folded? This is our fold that we created. It actually meets the top of my quilt top when I pulled it over. So what that means is if you didn't fold it over, you could at this point fold it to meet the quilt top and then fold it again. Okay. But I just found it easier to do it this way. It's just a personal preference. There's no right or wrong. Okay. Now this is our stitch line. So I'm actually going to glue down. Now I used the other one. It has like a thicker nozzle on it. And I made quite a mess. I'm ready to make more of a mess. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply put a bead down, nice thin bead. Yeah, I've got parchment paper in case I need it on board. When you talk about your corners, you may want to clip the corner if you want to help it lay a little bit nicer. But you want to see which side the fold is on top. And I know this was hard to see possibly, but the fold's on this side. Okay, this one's lower, this one's higher. So I'm going to want to make it the lower side fold first, and then I'm going to want to take the corner. Okay, so I'm going to show you. So we're going to fold it over like so, and then we're going to fold in this corner. And I'm going to glue it because I'm going to stitch from the top. Okay, so we're going to get a pretty miter out of this, hopefully. So knowing that I've got to do this side first, I'm just going to go ahead and press this glue down. It's temporary. It's Roxanne glue based it. It's temporary. It's water soluble. It's pH neutral. It won't hurt your fabric. And it's temporary. So once you wash it, it's gone. Okay. Now I'm going to go to this side and I'm going to go ahead and get this started because we said we wanted this side folded down first. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Put a nice little skinny bead of glue down. And if you'll notice, again, the fold meets the quilt top. Very convenient. Get that out of the way. Here we are. And I just take this, hold it down. Okay. Grab the iron and press. The idea is to try to press it straight. Okay. So that it lays nice and pretty. Then we're going to take the other side. Make sure everything, ooh, it's hot. Make sure everything's in. And we will be able to manipulate this just how we want it. I'm going to put glue down here in just a second. And we're going to get that nice pretty miter, okay? So I'm just going to put the glue down. Hopefully that's enough. Make sure it's folded in. We don't want any raw edges escaping. And we're just going to hold it down. And while I'm going to let this cool, and all you're going to keep on going all the way around your quilt until we have all of the edging folded over and nice and pretty. So I'm going to get that done off camera because it can be daunting to watch. But just know, so I'm going to go to this corner next. I'm going to see this is the fold is on this side. So that's the side that needs to go down. Yep. First, this isn't a very big quilt top. So I have to start now. I'm going to put that glue down. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and fold it over nice and straight and pretty as best I can. I'm using that seam. Now I've got to make sure that I go over the seam a little bit because that way my stitch will catch it. And I'm just going to simply press it down. Now I hit this corner. I'll get it when I come back. Okay. Pull this over, fold it down, make sure it's going to work. If something went awry and I needed to redo it, it's temporary glue. It will come off. You can just rip it right up. And I'm just going to glue this part down. Nice, straight, and pretty. Okay? And we'll just do that all the way around the quilt. So I'm going to get this done off camera. And when I'm done, we'll go to the next step. So I'll see you in just a sec. All right, I got her all done. And I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine. And I'm going to stitch down a little bit with you. But normally, I would stitch with black thread. I would want to match the binding as much as possible. But I am going to stitch with white. Now what's going to happen, yes, you're going to see my stitches. And if I wobble at all, you'll see that. But you'll also see which I can tell you I didn't. If I have any that aren't necessarily straight and it waves, and I think I'm going to have some, I can tell that I'm going to have a little bit of waves. You'll be able to tell that on the fabric, okay? With the stitches, you'll be able to see where the stitch is and what happened with it. And why I tell you, you want to try and fold this nice and straight. Because see, this looks like it's higher than it is over here. So we'll see. It's like that throughout the different places. But all the corners, they're nice and mitered. Okay? They look good, guys. Look at that. Just remember, whatever side is higher. So this side's higher. The fold is on this side. Okay? That's the side you're going to fold down first. And then you'll overlap with the other side. Okay? So that gives you a nice, pretty point. I mean, doesn't that look good? That's what I want. I want the top to be as pretty as possible. And if I match my thread, it's not the end of the world, okay? So let's go ahead and pull this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch in the ditch as best as possible with white thread on black binding. So I'll see you in just a sec. Okay, I have her ready to load. So what I'm going to do is I have my presser foot up so I don't grab it with the feed dogs and move it. But I'm going to lower right in the ditch. I just want to make sure I'm good. See, I can go a little bit over. Okay. Nope, because that'll be in it, like on the black fabric. We don't want to be on the black fabric. I want to be right next to it. Make sure I'm good. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and push her down. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up my bobbin thread just so it doesn't nest in the back. Okay. Whoop. That's not always good, is it? All right. So hanging on to both threads, I'm going to lift that presser foot again so I don't grab the feed dogs and move the fabric. I go right back down in the hole. Hang on to those threads and the foot pedal. And I'm going to attempt to stitch right in the ditch. Now what I like to do is I like to try and pull on the fabric a little bit, and I actually got on the fabric. Gotta love that. There's not as much of a lip when you have a single fold, so I find it a little more difficult. Now I'm going to go down to the corner and I'm going to show you what I do there. Now I will tell you, it's nice if you take this a little slower. But right when I get to that corner, I'm going to hit right at the point of the corner. I'm not going to come up on the black fabric or on the binding. I'm going to leave it right at that point as best as possible. I'm going to go ahead and lift my presser foot, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the fabric. Now, if I saw that I wasn't quite, I know it's hard for you guys to see, but if I saw that I wasn't right in the corner, I could go back, and I'm actually just a smidge off. I just don't want to go on it like I just did. So I'm going to pull it back just a bit. Okay, pull it down, spin it around, and I'm ready to roll. And I'm going to go all the way around the quilt top, just like so. So I'm going to get this done off camera. But this is all I'm doing, guys. I'm just really stitching in the ditch, like literally. Some people don't like to do that, and that's fine. But when I'm done, I'll bring you to the end. And I did go up on my fabric a little. And I'll show that to you, because I would rip it, personally. So I'll come back at the end here, and I'll show you what I do to end it. And then we should be done. So I'll see you guys in just a sec. I almost forgot. I got so inside what I was doing. So this is where I started. So I'm really right on top of where I started. And all I'm going to do, guys, is do a little back stitching. and then I'm going to cut threads. Okay. Now, to be real with you, what I feel more comfortable with is I'm going to lift my needle first, and I'm going to go to Nova Scotia, and I'm going to cut threads. And it's a habit for me because I usually bury threads, and you can bury these, but we're going to talk about this. I did stitch with white instead of black. If I stitch with black, everything would be a-okay, and you're going to see this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut threads out in Nova Scotia, and we'll talk about it here in just a sec. So I'm going to pull you under, and we're going to get, you know, personal and talk about some stuff, and I'll see you guys in just a sec. So this is the front side, and I know it's hard to see without me showing it to you. This is actually the threads from when I started and stopped. Haven't clipped them yet. And it looks pretty good. And I will tell you, if I used black thread, I don't know that I would have this complete anxiety to rip threads. So I'm going to try and pull this up a little bit. Right in here, I bobbled, and I've got some white thread on the black. If this matched, I wouldn't care. Okay, it's not worth it. It truly is not. Now I'm going to flip this over, and when I do, it'll be on this side of the threads, because like I said, I didn't clip anything. And what I want you to see is, you know, how important it is to really press straight. And this is where I started and stopped. There's my bobble, and you can tell that I'm a little bit higher over here. But listen, guys, other than that, yes, you can see the threads. If I would have done it in black, this wouldn't be as noticeable, okay? So I wanted you to see it's not a very big lip, and if you can really get it pressed nice and straight, and you sew straight, this looks gorgeous. But if this was done in black thread, I think it would have been just perfect. Okay, so that's your single fold. Let me come back at you. So there she is. Now today, as usual, Mayhem and I will be on at 3 p.m. today, 3 p.m. Eastern time, because I'm here in Virginia, to entertain the live quilting and answers, live Q&A that we like to do. So if you have any questions about this process, I'm there for that. I think I might talk, especially if any of y'all, even if I know that some people really want to learn a little bit extra of the math. So I think I might entertain the idea of doing how to figure out how much fabric you need for your binding. Okay. Not hard at all. And if you have the math, then it makes it really, really easy. I'm trying to think. I might have a sheet, a calculating sheet. If I do, it'll be in the inspirations tab, which is kind of a rigmarole. But I'll put the address for the inspirations tab down here. I think I have a calculator to help you figure it out. And then if not, we're just going to talk about it. Okay. And there won't be anything down here. So, and then that means I need to create one. I'll put it on a blog or something if I don't already have it. Because it's not hard math, and it just makes so much life more easy for you to figure out whether or not, or how much fabric you need, depending on how big your strips are. Whether you do a single fold, whether you do a double fold, whether you do 2.5 inch strips, 2 1/4, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, you pick your poison, but it'll help you figure out on your own exactly how much fabric you would need for your own binding. Okay, so we'll probably go there, but yeah, this turned out so super cute. I do need to clean it up just a bit, but yeah, hope this was helpful. I'll see you guys at 3 p.m. for our live Q&A. But until next time, may you all continue to be inspired, productive, ever so joyful. Never stop believing, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. Happy quilting. Happy Wednesday. Whoop whoop. I'll see y'all soon.